Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Mosier.
Isn't that fancy? Okay, we got animated graphics and opening and all that stuff. It's an amazing thing. I'm Charlie Mosier. As you can see, we're going to have as our guest, Alan O'Neill will be with us in a couple minutes, Tom. He's going to be joining. What happened to Tom? I lost Tom here somewhere. All right, well, hang on. This is exciting stuff. We're fixing this right now. Right there you are, Tom.
I thought you were going to do it all by yourself today.
I know. I thought for a minute. The minute it started feeling like I was going to be doing it by myself, but no, I want to do it with you. So anyway, we're here on Facebook Live with and YouTube Live at the same time. It's magic, and we're answering the questions you send us at HomeShowRadio.com under the Ask Tom tab. And as you can see, every week is a new technical adventure. So if you want to get your questions into us, you can go ahead and visit us at HomeShowRadio. Right here. Excuse me. You put your questions right here in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook, and we'll answer them. Does that sound fair enough to you?
I'm good with it. But let's go back. You talked about Alan O'Neill. Why don't you introduce who he is?
Oh,
because there's just some guy named Alan going to be on the show.
Well, Alan is plumbing. Alan, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. You're right. Yes, here I am worried about all the technical details, and
everybody
you're worried
knows Alan. We don't have to say where he's from.
Okay. Well, Alan has been one of our home show pros at Home Show Radio for. Oh golly, for at least I think
16 years. I think.
Yeah, quite a while.
His 15-year anniversary was I think last year, if I remember correct.
Yeah, and so we both got fancy plaques and everything. So anyway,
that's
not why we have him on the show though. Not because he gave us bling, but because he's a good guy and he can answer your questions. So he'll be along in a minute. So let's get right to it. Go ahead and send your questions in to us. In fact, Tom, I've got one right here for you that we just got in off the Facebook from Darren. Darren asks, I have some mortar that's missing. Do I need to chisel it all out before repointing the bricks, or just fill in the missing areas? What say you, Tom?
Just clean it up where it's missing and just scrape it out a little bit. You don't have to chisel it all out. That would be a mess, and then the bricks would start falling down. So leave some stuff in there and just repoint over the surface. And the deep cracks, you can fill a little deeper. But that's all you need to do, and try to match it the best you can.
Okay, fair enough. Hope that helps you out there, Darren. Thanks for being with us here this morning, by the way. And if you got a question just like Darren, you can put your questions in on the bottom and we'll answer it live right here. But we do have some questions, Tom, that we got in from some of the listener folk out in Radio Land. And this one comes to us from George. And George asks us, I'm replacing my air conditioner and heater, and Rick from Absolute Comfort came out and he said that I should have a 4-ton unit to replace a 3.5-ton unit. He had a Lennox, and then he's going to go to an American Standard. His Lennox was 25 years old. The house is about 1,600 square feet, built in 1963, and David from Central City installed his original unit back in 1985. So I want to install the 2-stage unit, but I'd like your opinion on the 16-SEER 1-stage versus the 17-SEER 2-stage, Tom.
Installed right, both would be fantastic. It's going to be so much different than it was from a unit that's 25 years old. There's no doubt about it. I've got 22-year-old Lennoxes in my house. Actually, I had to get rid of one. Last year, one of them, my condensing unit broke down, so I had to replace the condenser, and I used a different brand. But as far as that goes, I like a little extra tonnage. That's always been my philosophy. Whatever technician you're going to use on a regular basis, you want to make sure you follow their recommendations, because they're the ones that are going to come out hopefully and service it. They're going to back up their work. They're going to justify what they've done. I'm not a bells and whistle guy. For me, I just like a single stage, keep it simple. It's just the way I am. I drive a 96 Bronco, for goodness sake. I don't have a brand new car with the Bluetooth and the apps and all that. People like that. If you want a 2-stage, it's going to perform great if they install it right. It'll be more money. I'm kind of cheap, so I don't want to spend extra money. But either way,
cheap?
If they're,
you?
Yes.
No.
But no, but I want it done right. You know, I got an SEER 10, which I don't want to give up because they're old workhorse units that just keep working.
Right.
And my electric bill last month was $139, so I'm not complaining about my energy bill. But as far as that goes, if he's going to use Rick or Absolute Comfort Air, go with their recommendations. They're a good company. We've talked about them for years, and I want him to get the results he wants. And if he wants us 2-stage, that's fine.
I think
I'm
about
not
what
gonna
you.
tell him.
What's that?
I'm not going to tell them no, don't get a 2-stage, because some people like bells and whistles.
Right. Well, I've heard you say before that you start essentially it's dance with the one what brung you when it comes to getting this kind of thing, Tom. You want to have the guy who put it in take care of it long term.
Oh, I agree. I think there's a commitment you make to your whether it's a roofing contractor, whether it's Alan over at Abacus Plumbing, whatever the case may be. You get loyal with the people that work on your home.
Oh, wait,
and you're always going to get
hold,
good
hold,
service.
let's get a beauty shot of Alan. Here's Alan. He's standing there waiting. Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
I think there's a loyalty that people should have,
Right.
and if they get good service, and if they're lousy service, and if it doesn't work, then certainly move on to somebody that's going to treat you right. But yeah, Absolute Comfort Air will take good care of them, and sit down with them and get the unit you want, because it's all in how they put it in. I'm telling you, it's all on the install. You can buy a best unit in the world, and if they don't know what they're doing and they're just slapping in equipment, it doesn't do anybody a bit of good.
Okay, fair enough. Let's get our next question. Our next question comes to us from Harry in Bel Air. And he says, I have a garage with hardy plank in it, Tom, and a tar paper and 2x4 studs. The ceiling is open with just joists and rafters, and I intend to put up drywall and eventually add an AC unit to this thing. Is the rule use paper-backed insulation bats between the wall studs, then drywall and blankets with no backing or blown in on top of the ceiling of the drywall? What say you, Tom?
Yeah, you would. I would use the blankets and go ahead and sheetrock it. But if you're going to sheetrock a garage, you better keep it air conditioned just like you do your house, because it can become a mess. If he's just going to turn it on once in a while, I would tell him don't use sheetrock. And you don't need a lot of insulation. A little bit would be fine in the attic only. And radiant barrier, I think, would be even a better solution to what he's doing out there. I'm not sure. My garage is air conditioned. I don't have any insulation. But when I want to go out there and work, I can turn that puppy on and cool it down. It's a luxury. It's not an energy efficient system, because that's not what it's going to be. But as far as that goes, if you don't, they do fire rated sheetrock in attached garages for the fire rating. But people eventually have problems with it, especially on the ceiling, because it gets a little gooey. It starts to let go around the nails or the screws. And sometimes it'll start to drop just from the moisture in the garage.
Okay. Hey, I got another question that came in off the Facebook. Some guy named Tim Johnson writes to us. He says, how long should a water heater last? Now there's a question for Alan O'Neill. We're going to bring that one back for Alan a little later. But what do you say, Tom? Let's compare your answer to Alan's. What do you say?
Well, from my experience, if you just have a water heater, you don't maintain it, you just use it. 10 to 13 years is probably a time when it's going to probably start to fail a little bit. Now, in my case, I've always had high-end water softeners in my house. Mine's 22 years old and working great, but it's because I have equipment to maintain it. If you go into commercial buildings or restaurants and stuff, they have things like water softeners and filter systems to maintain their equipment, so their equipment like water heaters and things give them less maintenance problems. So it depends how it's set up, but I think on the average, a normal, regular tanked water heater, you're looking at 10 to 13 years, and you're probably going to want to replace it.
All right. Our next question comes from Dave in Richmond. He says, what is the best option, he says, for lifting or leveling a driveway and sidewalk? Polyurethane, mud jacking, and who do you recommend? I know we'd send them to Concrete Raising Corporation, but what's the difference, Tom, between one and the other?
Okay, well, first off, if let's say you have Concrete Raising Corporation, they're the experts. They know exactly what it needs to be done to it, and they will advise the person depending on what they're trying to lift, whether you use a cement type product like the mud jack as they call it, or you use the urethane foam. The urethane foam has a much smaller hole. It's usually used for concrete around swimming pools and pea gravel, something that has a texture, something that you don't want to see a hole about that big around just full of some gray concrete. But if it's a driveway or something like that, the cement mixture is cheaper, it's very effective, and it'll blend a little bit because it's just concrete and concrete. So that's really what it comes down to. Usually decorative surfaces, you use urethane foam, or if it's just small little areas that you don't need a whole bunch of, you don't have a lot of void under there, and you don't need a bunch of material up underneath there. But go with the people and go with their advice, because they're the experts. Concrete Raising Corporation, they raise roads. We've seen them raise a driveway, Charlie. We did a Facebook Live on that once, where that was a cement mixture on that, and it was a cement mixture on the sidewalk, because it was just a city sidewalk, and it was all stained and everything, but they just wanted to level it and turn it a little bit so it would drain to the street. And it looked great at the end. So talk to the experts when they come out, but I don't want our homeowners to tell the people what to do. I want them to talk to the experts and decide what they should do for fixing their problem. And you can't do anything about that until you get out to the job.
Right. I don't think he was looking at you to tell him what to do. I just think he wanted your input on the two different kinds. And I remember when we went out and watched them do that job, that I remember he said that the polyurethane has a much smaller hole to it. So if cosmetics is a concern, then maybe you want to think about going that route. Okay, our last question.
What I was getting at is the surface of it. My mother, I had her place done, and it was polyurethane because she had a pea gravel, and we didn't want a big hole that didn't have any pea gravel on there.
I got it. All right, our last question this morning. You'll like this one. This question here comes from Jeremy in Cyprus. And he says, "Hi, Tom. I just got out of the Marine Corps, Semper Fi, buddy, with an honorable discharge, and I'm looking for employment in the trades, and I don't mind starting at the ground level. Tom, what's the first step for him to get started in the biz?"
Choose the trade you want to get into. And if you don't like it after a little while, just get into another one. But people come to me and say, "I want to be in the trades." Which one? Oh, I don't know. Well, you've got to decide what you want to do, because you're going to commit. Let's say you're an electrician. You have to commit to be an apprentice. You work, I think it's 8,000 hours, and you commit to becoming a journeyman. Then you start to make a pretty good living at that point. But you have to, or a plumber, you get in. I run a plumbing apprenticeship program down here in Brownsville. They have to decide they want to be a plumber, because it's a lot of work involved as you move up the ladder. You have to be patient. So the first thing is he needs to figure out what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Do you ever send a kid to college and you say, "Hey, what do you want to do?" "I don't know. I'll just go to college and figure it out." Okay, fine.
All right. Go find yourself. Actually, there's a question we should ask Alan here. And let me just kind of do. Let me just kind of do the intro here. Alan O'Neill is one of our Home Show pros. You find all our Home Show pros there on our website. You go down, you click on Abacus, and that'll take you over to the Abacus page right there, where you can connect with the one, the only Alan O'Neill of Abacus Plumbing. And Alan, thank you for being with us here this morning.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning, Alan. I'm fine.
Good. So, Alan, what would be your advice to Jeremy here, who's trying to get his career going?
Yeah, I will tell you, the best piece of advice I've ever got in my life, Charlie, was when my dad told me to get a trade and you'll never be idle. And it's true. I've never been unemployed in my life. But, as Tom said, it's important to pick the trade you think you like. And you can change in the early stages. But, I think it's to find the trade you've got some passion about, and then find the company that's willing to sponsor you through an apprenticeship. And, we take apprentices on ranging in age from 18 years of age, straight out of high school, to people in their 40s that just want a career change. And if you're willing to be dedicated and stick to it, in 3-4 years, you can be making $80,000 a year and doing really well. So get with a good company, pick the trade you want, obviously. And then, what we found is during this COVID-19 crisis, all the trades have been essential services. So they've been able to continue working. So people are starting to appreciate the trades.
And you guys, I'm sure, being careful in how you go out and do this stuff, visit the houses, and you're taking all kinds of special safety protocols and all that.
Oh, yeah. They're disinfecting the truck door between every call. They're wearing masks, they're wearing gloves, they're staying socially distant. And we've even developed a contactless way for the customer to sign off on the invoice or the proposal. So yeah, a lot of changes in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, my wife pioneered that contact-free use of my credit card years ago.
I have the same issue myself.
All right, so Alan, we have you here to answer some questions, and there's one that came in. I want to ask you this one first before we get to these other ones here. I'm going to get this thing over here in front of me so I can read it. Here it is. Let's see. Martha in Spring says that back in 2015, a licensed plumber replaced her water heater, and on the invoice, he placed a note that said the temperature and pressure relief discharge valve has a span of 3 years. Well, after 3 years, she called the water heater company and said why this has to be on there, and they were unaware of it. And she can't understand why it would have to be replaced so quickly. So, Alan, the question is this for real or is it a scam?
No, it's very real, Charlie. So the TMP valve, plumbers call it a TMP valve. It's temperature and pressure relief valve. It is the safety feature on the water heater. So it's designed to pop off when we have an excess of temperature or pressure inside the tank. So it is a safety feature. Now, the issue is most customers are never made aware of it, most homeowners, and don't ever change it or test it. We recommend annually testing the temperature and pressure relief valve by popping it off. Now, we do have to inform the customer before we pull the lever and pop the valve that it may not reseat when we do that. And if it doesn't reseat, we have to replace it. But if Martha would just go to her water heater, there's a yellow tag, unless the plumber took it off, there's a yellow tag on the temperature and pressure relief valve that states this temperature and pressure relief valve should be changed every 2 to 4 years. So 3 years is exactly right. Now, I will tell you 90% of homeowners never change it without incident. But it is a safety feature. It should be tested, and we recommend every 3 years, Charlie, as a matter of course.
Well, while we're on the time span question, we had a question a minute ago, and Tom answered it. I know we had you in a soundproof booth, so you didn't hear his answer. But I'm going to bring it back up here. So Tim wrote to us and wants to know, how long should a water heater last when you put a new one in?
We recommend 10 to 12 years, Charlie. And it's interesting because my house is 10 years old. We just celebrated 10 years of moving into our house. And I'll freely admit I didn't change the water heaters myself. I'm gone too old and unfit for that. But I had my guys out to replace my 2 water heaters. Just because they're in the attic and they're 10 years old, and our experience is 10 to 12 years is the time when a water heater needs to be replaced. Now, if it's in your attic, absolutely I'd be looking at it at the 10-year mark, because I, for one, didn't want to hear my wife telling me, you're a plumber and our house just flooded. So I want to be proactive and replace those water heaters at 10 years.
Fair enough. All right, Mike in Midwest Houston sent us this plumbing question in, Alan. He says, I have a bathroom faucet where hot water barely comes out. He says, once every 3 months, I'll take it off the sink, pour CLR into it, and it works fine for a while, but eventually it slows down to a drip again. My other 3 faucets in the house, no problem. How can he fix it? What do you think is the cause of the problem?
I actually think the cause of the problem, the root cause of the problem is the water heater, Charlie. I think the big clue here is it's the hot side faucet, and I think debris is coming from the water heater scale, and it's probably the faucet that's closest or got the shortest run of pipe from the water heater, and this scale from the water heater is popping into that faucet and causing it to restrict flow. So I would look at either, depending on the age of the water heater, either replacing the water heater or flushing the water heater really well and removing the scale from it. And I'm almost sure that it's the scale from the water heater coming into the faucet and causing a lack of flow. He's going to continue to deal with it unless he deals with the water heater issue.
Fair enough. All right. Here's one for you from Matt from Willis, Texas. He says, I have a nasty smell underneath my kitchen sink. I replaced the leaky P-trap and fixed the leak in the pipe that meets the drywall. I've cleaned up the area and sprayed it with vinegar, but the smell went away for a few minutes. There isn't anything backed up in the pipe, but the smell is still there. What could be causing that, Alan?
Yeah, I don't think this is a plumbing issue, Charlie. I think when he had his leak under the sink in the P-trap, I think the cabinet got wet and there's probably some residual mold or mildew in there that he can't see, or maybe the base of the cabinet needs to be replaced. But I don't think the smell's coming from his plumbing. I think it's in the cabinet somewhere. So I would look at possibly replacing any damaged wood that may be either in the base of the cabinet or in the drywall there, where the pipe goes through the drywall. Wherever the water was dripping is where there's likely to be some residual water damage.
Alan, people ask me what's my toughest question, and I get questions every weekend. Tom, I have this smell in my house, and I don't know how do you answer that? But yeah, and they always blame the plumbing. Tom, my plumbing is smelling up my house, and it usually is not. It can be a dead squirrel in the wall. It can be so many different things, and it's happened on the show. But that is the toughest question you can get in radio. Why does my house smell? I don't know. Have you cleaned it? I mean, I don't know.
Well, the questions I love, Tom, is when the homeowner says, I've got a noise in my plumbing.
Oh, yeah.
And you say, what's it like? And then they proceed to impersonate the noise. And,
can you hold the phone? Yeah. Can you hold the phone a little closer to it?
That's right. That's a tough one too.
Noises and smells are I absolutely hate those questions because it's very hard to pin it down.
It could be 100 different things, but it's usually not the plumbing. That's right. The whole point. It's usually not the plumbing.
100%.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of noises, Alan, I got a noise question for you. And this, I think, and remember, if you got a question for Alan, you can send it in to us, and we're happy to do it. Just add it to the comments, and we'll have it in. We appreciate all y'all being with us this morning. Matthew in Lakeshore, Maryland, says, I'm having a dripping sound after one of the 2 toilets is flushed in the upstairs level of our home. It starts as fast drips, then slows and stops after about a minute. I've heard the hot water expanding pipes, but this is only when the toilet is used. It's been for about 6 months now, but there's no sign of water damage. Could this be something evaluated, fixed, or is the toilet? What say you, Alan? What do you think?
I'm 90% sure it's the fill valve, Charlie. The fill valve is either starting to fail, or it's not shutting off cleanly when the water reaches a level. And the easiest thing, the fill valves are pretty cheap. It's just to replace the fill valve or have a plumber replace the fill valve. Now there is we came across one of these one time that had us baffled for a while. It was an internal leak in the porcelain of the toilet, but that's so unusual and remote. I'd replace the fill valve, and if at that point it doesn't stop, then I'd probably call a plumber out to see what's going on. But I'd look at the fill valve first in this case. Yeah.
And that's when you get the foghorn noise, right?
Yeah. See, I told you people are impersonating noises. Right. There we go.
And you can hear more of that every weekend on HomeShowRadio.com. For 33 and a third years. So anyway, yeah. So that's great. Well, Alan, I can't thank you enough for being on with us here this morning. And we can't say enough nice things about Alan O'Neill, the gentleman plumber that he is. And he's risen to high levels of success in the business, not just here, but I guess here and in Dallas and all over the place. Yeah.
Well, Charlie, I want to say I heard you talking about our 16th anniversary. We just celebrated 17 years on the 29th of April. And I will tell you, the first time the public ever heard the name Abacus was from Tom Tynan's mouth on Saturday, the 30th of April, 2003. So
see, you blame him?
That's how long we've been together, yeah. So anytime we screw up, it's Tom's fault, and we do a great job, it's all me, yes.
Well, we appreciate the partnership, Alan, and thank you so much for being with us this morning.
We do too. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot. Now, we get together every Thursday morning about 8:45 like this. We bring another one of our home show pros in to answer questions and help you out around the house. And, of course, Tom's here every Saturday and Sunday to answer your questions on the radio, on Sports Radio 610.
I am on Sports Radio 610. What are you leading me into?
Pimp your show, buddy. Anyway.
Yes. No, please listen. Saturday from 9 to 12 and Sunday from 8 to 11. Charlie shares the first half hour on early edition on Sunday, where we take questions from our website, which is free, by the way. We have all the videos we do and everything else right there for you. And no imposters, only the real deal like Alan O'Neill and the rest of the people that are part of the certified family of home show pros, I should say.
Yeah, and that's a good point because we do carefully vet all the home show pros that you'll find
Absolutely.
at HomeShowRadio.com. Hey, before we go, I got one guy who's trying to get in under the wire. Last question here comes from Nathaniel Bradley. He wants to know, will tree roots damage my foundation? Tom?
Tree roots, as far as the anchor roots go, will damage your sidewalks, will damage your driveways. They don't really damage the foundation, but the feeder roots, which are about 30 inches below the ground, that suck all the water out of the ground, can cause a foundation problem because the soils shrink and swell depending how much moisture is in there. And if there doesn't have any moisture, we have a dry season, that soil will shrink down, then you'll get a drop in your foundation. So in that way, it hurts the foundation. The anchor roots, which are on top, they can crawl right underneath that little flatwork, which is very thin, and you see driveways go up and down and crack and do things like that. So you have two different types of damage on two different types of concrete.
Yeah, chasing the plumbing. Good thing Alan's around. He can fix that too. I mean, I think he's still around. Is Alan still sitting there? Yep, yeah, he's still sitting there. He says he'll help you out if you want. Okay. Nope. Thank you, Alan. All right. So that's going to do it for our broadcast this morning. Now, listen, if you would like to get your questions on to some of the writing questions for us, we'd love to get them from you. You can go ahead and visit HomeShowRadio.com. We have set it up for you right there on the homepage. You just go ahead and click on the Ask Tom button, and up comes the form. You fill it out. You can even attach your pictures you can see down there at the bottom. When you're done, you hit Send to Tom, and it will come to us, and we will answer your questions in one of our videos that we put on YouTube or Facebook, and we post a new one to our website every day at HomeShowRadio.com. Anything to add, Tom?
I'm good. Listen this weekend, okay?
All right.
That's all I can say, and we're always there for you all the time.
And remember, Danny and the Garden Pros start at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning on Sports Radio 610. 7 of the best garden centers in Houston will be on every weekend answering your questions about gardening. They're kind of the warm-up act for Tom, who comes on at 9, and he's there till 9.
Oh, they're a top-notch act. They're just a different category.
Category, that's right. All right. That's right. They're taking all the micro-life questions now. All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week, 8:45 for Facebook Live.